Anyways, let's get into some stuff because I'm going to keep it a little bit short today. My apologies in advance. Looking at the hurricane situation in the Gulf. Well, one is not a hurricane. Marco downgraded to a tropical storm, but very, very close to the Louisiana, Alabama coast as unprecedented back-to-back threats target Louisiana. The Gulf Coast will get walloped by a tropical storm and a hurricane this week, bringing torrential rain, fierce winds, and ferocious storm surges. First up, Marco which strengthened from a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane Sunday, but weakened overnight to sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, just under the hurricane threshold. Marco is expected to make landfall on the Louisiana coast Monday. That's today, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, looking like about 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which is not very far from here. Oops. Hello. Didn't mean to do all that. Then there's Tropical Storm Laura, which is forecast to strengthen to a hurricane before it makes landfall on the U.S. mainland late Wednesday or early Thursday. Laura is also expected to make landfall on or near the Louisiana coast. National Weather Service meteorologist Benjamin Schott said Laura could possibly be a Category 3 storm as it approaches the state, bringing up a 10 feet of storm surge. Holy moly, that's a lot of feet of storm surge to the southeastern coastline. If the storm holds its strength, water could be pushed back up the state's rivers as far as 30 miles inland. Parts of Louisiana will start to see the effects of Tropical Storm Laura by Wednesday morning after Marco leaves the state Tuesday evening, Schott said. The unprecedented kind of thing here is that it's the same state within 48 hours of each other. Schott previously said, in modern meteorological history, there's never been anything like this before where you could have possibly two hurricanes hitting within miles of each other over a 48-hour period. Golly, what could it be? I wonder what it is. This is a good tweet from Rebekah Schwartz Lesberg. It blew my mind when someone said, stop thinking about this year as the warmest for the last 100 years, but the coolest one for the next 100. Think on that indeed. Again, more predictions about how fast and to what degree the Earth will warm. How much will Earth really warm by? Latest research, more likely scenario based on new study, and most likely future pollution scenario is 2 to 3 C by 2100. This is by Climate Watcher, who inserted surely it's by 2050, right? There's no way that we're only at 2 or 3 C by 2100. That is one of the most ridiculous prognostications, but it makes everybody feel just fine, right? Everybody just feels just fine. You know, because it's 80 years from now. Whoa, that's going to be pretty warm 80 years from now. Glad it's not 10 or 20. Oh, oops. A major new study has been published, one that gives much more certainty. Oh, does it now? How certain are you on the extent of future warming we might expect? Along with many other, it's funny, you know, these like faux propaganda studies that are, you know, meant to tell you that climate change is real, but it's not that bad. You know, oh, it certainly will be bad. It could be bad, but you know, we've got time to build a lot more electric cars, guys. Okay, so come on, get with the Green New Deal already. A major new study has been published, one that gives much more certainty on the extent of future warming we might expect. Along with many other international climate scientists, it was led by my colleague, climate scientist Stephen Sherwood from the University of New South Wales in Australia. So I asked him a few questions about it to drill down what this means for us in the future. We know Earth's climate warms as greenhouse gas concentrations like carbon dioxide rise. Blah, blah, blah. From the 1950s, so that's the baseline they're using, NASA temperature data show Earth has warmed 0.8 C up until the last decade. Oh, so not including the last decade. So they're saying, basically 1 C from the 1950s. So, well, it's also near certain that humanity is causing this recent warming, as I write about in detail here. But what about future warming? How do climate scientists predict the future? This is all very Bill Nye the Science Guy kind of, Saturday morning cartoon. That's kind of what this article is sounding like to me. The big unknowns, energy, and economics, and politics. The scale of future warming remains uncertain for a variety of reasons. The biggest unknown being how much carbon pollution humanity will emit over the coming decades. How about what we've already emitted and the lag time of temperature rise of the carbon that's already been emitted? How about that? That is based on political and economic systems, hardly something we can predict over the coming months, let alone the coming decades. Ha ha ha. So crazy, guys. So scientists have developed complex Earth system models to predict the future using a variety of future carbon pollution scenarios, ranging from the burn all coal reserves option to the shut down all coal-fired power plants tomorrow option. But another important element of the uncertainty is how sensitive Earth's climate is to carbon dioxide. Scientists call that equilibrium climate sensitivity. It represents the temperature rise for sustained doubling of carbon dioxide concentrations. The equilibrium climate sensitivity has long been estimated within a likely range of 1.5 to 4.5 C. That means if and when carbon dioxide in our atmosphere reaches 560 parts per million, my God, we're already at that with carbon equivalent, right? So that would be today. Earth will warm somewhere. This is so ridiculous. Okay, so we're just going to call this garbage and trash, this whole article and this whatever they're talking about, because the Earth will warm somewhere between 1.5 and 4.5 C. That's at 560 parts per million, which has long been frustratingly uncertain. The new research is the most complete investigation yet into all this available evidence, and finds the most likely range to be 2.6 to 3.9 C. But this equilibrium temperature would take hundreds of years, said Sherwood. Okay. It takes a long time to fully adjust to the change in the rate of energy coming in, hundreds of years. However, most of the warming happens within a decade of the change. We think the actual warming over the coming century, given in emission scenarios, closely related to the equilibrium warming amount. So if you know one, you roughly know the other. How far along are we today toward doubling concentrations of atmospheric carbon dioxide? Nearly halfway. Yeah, we are at halfway. They're saying 413. No, we reached 419 this year. So we'll just call that 420, and that is, ding, 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 halfway right now. Based on slowly increasing concentration without political action by the world, this would mean a concentration would double to 560 by 2070. At which point, there won't be many humans around taking carbon concentration readings. The good news, the extreme scenarios aren't likely. Okay. I'm going to stop reading this because it's just going to be frustration, and this is just, I'm going to stamp this with, dopey. This article is dopey. And anybody who, this article is clearly intended, to make people feel much better about, taking their vacation this year. As soon as this lockdown is over, we're going to take a long vacation and, eat out and go out to take some, we're going to take some, some ecotourism tours off the coast, maybe in the Mediterranean. We'll go look at some, we'll go scuba diving, look at some fish, right? And, this just makes people feel like, everything's fine, as long as we take some action pretty soon. Pretty soon. Unapologetic vegan, there will be no political action, right? But, yes, you do hear a panting dog, yes. But if we're, warming between 1.5 and 3.9 C by a 2100, well, then nobody needs to take any action, right? Because let the kids handle it, or let the grandkids handle it. Hunter Z, most articles are reverting to saying 2100 all the time now. Well, it's the default position. And it's been the default position. But it's actually, there have been some articles saying like we're going to see 3 or 4 C by 2050 or 2060. Like I've seen a few of those. Kevin, I look tired. Thanks. I'm a little bit tired. I don't know. Let's say harried would be a good word. I'm trying to do a lot of things all very early in the morning. Yeah, exactly. Woo! Irk 1, any article that includes 2100 is a sign for bullshit. So I anybody who says 2100, anyone who says 2100 is, they're propagandizing you. They're saying like, yeah, this is going to be bad in, a long time from now. So climate change is real, guys, and we really should do something. But, don't worry about it. It's not going to be a thing for the next 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years, right? Kuro Hikes, I'm hearing 2040. Poppy Davis, I'm seeing 2050. So as I read a few weeks ago, Rich Diana, 90 degrees and humid in Michigan. Youch. Yeah. That's about what it is here. We've been extremely humid over the last 2 or 3 days. It's been, 60% humidity, which is pretty high humidity for LA. And we've been in the 90s. So it's like, we're getting the same thing. It's pretty unbearable. So, listen, I read an article a few weeks ago that the World Meteorological Organization said we could touch 1.5 in the next 4 years. If we're going to touch 1.5 before 2025, how soon do you think we're going to get to 2C or 3C? I'm betting in the next 20 years. 2C at least, at the very least, in the next 20 years. That's a done deal. So this 2100 talk is not to be listened to. Kuro Hikes 100 here, 28% humidity. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, they're trying to get you. The conspiracy is they're not trying to tell you how bad it is. That's the conspiracy. Oh my God, 114 is the high, Kuro. Jeez. The conspiracy is they don't want you to know how bad it is. And all you need to know how bad it is to watch something like this. This is retweeted by Walker Bragman, retweeting Mike Hudema, who I have certain problems with Mike Hudema. He's a climate-aware person, but he's a big old renewable energy Green New Deal huckster. I don't know. Huckster Hudema. But are you guys watching this? This is pretty insane. This is Arctic sea ice loss over the last 25 years or 35 years. But watch what happens when we get to like 2011. I mean, it's just, that the white part is the thick multi-year sea ice. The white is. And all the gray ice is the, yearly ice that goes away or is close to going away. This is 2010. Look how little multi-year ice is left. I'm going to try and stop it right before the end. 2014. Look how little multi-year ice is left. This is chilling. This is 2019. This isn't even this year. And look at the multi-year ice. It's not even existent. This is all patchy. You know, they're trying to say that sea ice extent is larger than 2012. However, when you saw those pictures of mosaic in the, at the North Pole, that's not ice extent. Those are ice cubes floating around in the water. That is not ice extent. I mean, you could say the extent of ice cubes floating around the water, I guess, if you want to call that extent, but that's not solid ice. So, whatever they're using to measure extent, and I'll show you, maybe I can find Zach Labe. Andy Truman, fuck now, I look tired, yeah. Poppy Davis says that's too big to be a conspiracy. Too many people would have to be complicit. I think scientists are just conservative in their projections. Yes, but look, the powers that be, the media, is not trying to cover the Arctic ice loss. They're not covering, if you read articles on the internet, you would understand how bad the climate situation is. And a lot of people do understand how bad the climate situation is. A growing number of people understand it. But the main bulk of people just get their news from CNN or MSNBC, right? They turn on the TV in the morning, they're like, I'm watching the news. Or they listen to NPR in the car on the way to work. Oh, I'm informed, right? They're not. And they, NPR, might barely touch it. But they're not really talking about, how horrible the situation is. And they're not framing it. They're not framing it in that matter. They're not framing it in the way that you have to go to YouTube to find out, oh, this is really what's going on, right? Or you really have to be on Twitter. You really have to follow climate-aware people on Twitter to really understand the severity of it. And even if you follow climate-aware people on Twitter, you have, people, Zach Labe and Mike Hudema and other people that are like, well, this is really bad, guys, but, in 2100, we might get to 2C, right? Like, there's still, or we really need to get that Green New Deal signed. They're still promoting this, good-timey kind of like, well, if we take some action now, well, everything's going to be fine. It's just going to be a little warmer in here, right? Like, they're still promoting this bullshit scenario that everything's going to be okay. That life will not change dramatically for people in the next 10 years or 20 years. That life will never be the same on this planet again, ever. They're never going to say that. Mike Hudema or, the people that are arguing against Planet of the Humans, right? That's a conspiracy. That is a conspiracy to try and, Pollyanna or rose color the whole thing, to make it seem like, well, we still have a viable civilization and let's just do a little fixing over here and fixing over there. That's a conspiracy. They're doing that on purpose. They really don't want people to understand how bad it is. Because if enough people understand how, yes, Astromaster, NPR gets a lot of funding from big oil. That's right. And from all these, philanthropic funds, right? These, the Harriet Blabadiboo fund or the, Rockefeller fund. All these people who are really interested and invested in keeping the current paradigm going. If enough people know how bad the situation is, then enough people might understand it all at once. They might see all at once, oh, it's our entire system that's destroying the planet. Maybe we should change that. They don't want you to do that. They don't want that change to happen. They don't want you to know that. That's a conspiracy. And please, don't get me wrong, Poppy. I'm not, I'm just saying, yeah, I understand about climates, scientists being cautious and all that, but they are using that caution, that kind of knee-jerk reaction that scientists, because they're scientists and they have to be skeptical about the science, they have to imbue their science, their findings with skepticism. They're using that against, whatever forces are trying to get you to wake up to the fact that we need to really, 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 really degrow and disassemble and, disarm the militaries and, like we just can't retool our economy. We can't just retool the way we do things. We have to basically disassemble, destroy on many levels everything about the way we do things, about the way we live, and build from the bottom. Like we really need to pick and choose the very small things that we think are very important to keep around as far as our civilization, and trash the rest. Consumer culture has to go. And that means, 80% or 90% of the companies or the businesses, the corporations that are in business right now need to be nationalized and dissolved and done away with. Or just not supported. Like, just don't ever buy anything again from these people and let the businesses fail. If we did that, how quickly would you see the governments trying to prop up these businesses? I'm sure that would happen too. Oh my God, we got to, subsidize all these industries because they're all failing. Nobody wants to buy their shit anymore because they understand that they're killing the planet. We got to help these industries transition into a new economy. And they'll do that before they help humans transition into a new way of living. So I did actually. So in this in this post that Mike Llama said, Arctic sea ice melting over the last 35 years. We're in a climate emergency. Okay, he gets that. Time to stop the delays and hashtag act on climate. Okay, great. He gets that. Climate crisis. And then he goes, hashtag solar, wind, renewables, go 100, whatever this is, renewable, whatever that hashtag is. I tweeted at him, what about rewilding? What about degrowth? What about nature reserves with no humans? What about, plant trees? What about all this other stuff? Why does it always have to be about building stuff? No reply, of course. No response. So are we really in a climate emergency, or is this climate emergency meant to get us on board with, changing our economy? Or do we need to change how we live, or do we just need to change our economy? I don't know. It sounds like he's just supporting changing our economy. Everything's fine as long as we do that. You know what I'm saying? This is a good tweet from Go Green. Big oil are getting away with murder and getting billions to heat up the planet. And in 2018 in Japan, more than 1,000 people died during an unprecedented heat wave. And in 2019, scientists proved it would be impossible without global warming. I already read this article and I covered this, but and here, I think this is the last thing I'm going to cover today, guys. Because I'm running out of time. I've got to move on to some other things today. But this is, to go back to the conspiracy. The conspiracy to not do anything about climate change revealed how the gas industry is waging war against climate action. This is from The Guardian. In a nationwide blitz, gas companies and their allies fight climate efforts that they consider an existential threat to their business. When progressive Seattle decided last year to wipe out its climate pollution within the decade, the city council vote in favor was unsurprisingly unanimous, and the easiest first step on that path was clear. About 1/3 of the city's climate footprint comes from buildings, in large part from burning natural gas for heating and cooking. Gas is a fossil fuel that releases carbon dioxide and far more potent methane into the atmosphere and heats the planet. It is plentiful and cheap, and it's also a huge and increasing part of America's climate challenge. So, a city councilman drafted legislation to stop the problem from growing by banning gas hookups in new buildings. Wow, that's pretty, that's pretty extreme. Suddenly, the first step didn't look so easy. From there, we just ran into a wall of opposition, said Alec Conan, a campaigner with the climate group 350 Seattle. Local plumbers and pipe fitters warned of job losses. Realtors complained their clients would still want gas fireplaces. Building owners feared utility bills could soar. The effort died. The ban wasn't politically tenable, it seemed. But internal records obtained by The Guardian show that measures defeat and the wall of opposition that advocates experienced were part of a sophisticated pushback plan from Seattle's gas supplier, Puget Sound Energy. Seattle's story isn't unique. In fact, it's representative of a nationwide blitz by gas companies and their allies to beat back climate action they consider an existential threat to their businesses. According to emails, meeting agendas, and public records reviewed by The Guardian, the documents show that multi-billion-dollar gas industry has built crucial local coalitions and hired high-powered or gas-powered operatives to torpedo cities' anti-gas policies, sometimes assisted by money those same cities have paid into gas trade associations. In historically conservative states, the gas industry has convinced legislatures to pass laws prohibiting cities from following in Seattle's footsteps, and trying to ban new gas hookups in a digital world. It has carefully cultivated the fuel's image, paying Instagram influencers to cook with gas stoves. In the media, it has sought to be quoted in important stories in news outlets like Reuters, according to internal records. In Washington, D.C., where the industry has strong support from the Trump administration, of course it does, it has lobbied the federal government on everything from environmental reviews to appliance standards. The gas utilities are facing an existential threat, and instead of approaching a decarbonizing economy as an opportunity to reinvent themselves, they're digging their heels in and going back to age-old tactics of the fossil fuel industry, said Charlie Spatz, a researcher at the Climate Investigation Center. These public records show just a fraction of a much larger effort to slow down critical climate solutions. In the Seattle battle, Puget Sound Energy hired a lobbying firm that had previously defeated a proposed tax on sugary drinks. The firm, CBE Strategic, was asked to develop an action plan targeted at countering 350.org's efforts and stopping local governments from enacting restrictions on gas, according to a summary document of the work. CBE's responsibilities included coalition building, lobbying strategy, communications, and research. We have been able to stop the fast track of the proposal was on. Stop the fast track the proposal was on by deploying a strong coalition of labor and business. The summary said, CBE planned to shape an alternative to the ban. The firm would create an inclusive stakeholder process and analyze possible economic impacts on customers. In other words, the opponents would band together and stall. Other industry documents confirm Puget Sound Energy's mobilizing efforts. One document from a gas appliance industry group, the Hearth, Patio, and Barbecue Association, noted that Puget Sound Energy and the local Chamber of Commerce had formed a coalition to counter the Seattle City Council and similar efforts in Bellingham and Everett, and would continue to monitor new anti-gas proposals. Puget Sound Energy opposed the climate proposals despite its stated mission of deep decarbonization and greenhouse gas emission reduction. Because, yeah, if you just say it, then that means you're doing it, but you don't really have to do it. And goal of a carbon-neutral electric system by 2030, which means they're not. That's their stated mission, but they're not going to do that. That's what that means. That means we're going to lie to you and make you feel real good about what we're doing, but we're not going to do that. Neither Puget Sound Energy nor its lobbying firm, CBE, responded to requests for comments. Of course they didn't. After the gas ban was beaten back in Seattle, Caleb Hieringa, a spokesman for the Sierra Club in the city, said advocates saw coordinated industry and union pushback against gas-related climate efforts. grow. A new group called the Partnership for Energy Progress was taking root. The partnership is an organization of Western utilities, labor unions, and businesses that plans to spend $2.8 million in 2020 convincing consumers that natural gas is part of a clean energy future, and fighting state and local climate restrictions on gas, according to records reviewed by The Guardian. Yeah, the partnership's target demographic, what it calls flight risks, that could turn on the gas industry. Wow. Wow. Is Democratic women between the ages of 35 and 54 who own homes and have college degrees, according to polling used by the group. Unions are instrumental to the partnership, contributing to about 1/6 of its budget. Leanne Guire, the political director of the Seattle Plumbers and Pipefitters Union that opposed the gas ban, is the group's president. Advertisements from the coalition show photos of mothers with their babies next to gas stoves and fireplaces with words, reliable, affordable, natural gas, here for you. It's kind of unlike anything we've seen up here, Hiringa said. The partnership did not respond to specific inquiries about its work, but said in an emailed statement from Guire that its goal was to communicate the work we do to provide reliable, affordable energy to homes and businesses and highlight the progress we're making to address climate change, which means they're not. They're opposing progress against climate change. They're opposing that while saying that they're for it. Right? This is actually, let me see. In San Luis Obispo, California, the city tried to disincentivize gas hookups rather than ban them outright. The utility company there, Southern California Gas Company, hired consultants who helped postpone a vote on the measure, according to the Los Angeles Times. In Sacramento, the city is trying to ban fossil fuel use in new buildings by 2023 and transition a quarter of residential and small commercial buildings away from fossil fuel by 2030, but faces opposition from a gas utility group trying to push back against these with other trade associations. I'm going to wrap this up. This is, of course, happening all over the place. Happening in Democratic majority city governments or state governments. And you could see these utilities as being, necessary utilities, right? Even outside of, the consumer economy, non-essential consumer economy, right? I guess that's what I'm looking for. You could see this as essential utilities or whatnot, but even this we can't transform. We can't transform it fast enough. To all the people that are like solar, wind, renewables, you see the opposition that's already happening right now, and how long that battle is going to take. If we're supposed to try to get to net zero by 2030 or 2035, and this opposition, these lobbyists, and these, they're going to use every trick in the book, and they're going to use all kinds of propaganda and media at their disposal, even social media, to push back against this. It's not going to happen quick enough. You're going to have to start talking about degrowth. You have to start educating people around other things and other means and ways in which we can transform society at its core. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.